Now, the reason that the astral plane is important in magic is because when you're visualizing, when you're drawing the pentagrams, when you're drawing the triangles, when you're drawing the hexagram, whatever particular shape you're drawing, whether it's corresponding to the elements, the planets, the zodiac, you're imprinting the astral plane with that image. Now, if in addition to doing an act, a mental act, a visualization, visualizing something that's taking place on the astral plane, you create motions or actions, or ultimately construct things that reflect what you're visualizing. For example, if you were to trace in the air a hexagram corresponding to Jupiter. Now, the color for Jupiter would be blue, so you trace in blue, and you trace it from the upper right hand of the hexagram. So you would trace that, and you're moving your arm physically. So there's a geometric motion corresponding to what you're visualizing internally. So you're kind of grounding that visualization by moving your hand. You're not just sitting passively and only taking action internally by visualizing. So you're combining the two, and so what's internal is reflected by what's external. And that's how we create a bridge between what we internalize, the vision that we see, and the action we take in the outer world to produce that form or bring it into our lives. So we want to potentially create something in the physical world to correspond to Jupiter, like a talisman. Now, once again, as I mentioned, the talisman is a two-dimensional representation of potentially something three-dimensional, although if you're drawing a hexagram, you could view it as two-dimensional in this case. But in terms of visualizing actual objects and building them in the physical world, you would first visualize a three-dimensional shape, for example, a table. Then you would draw it on a two-dimensional surface, a plane, flat surface, just two-dimensional, and then you would build it in the three-dimensional world. So you produce that table. So you would want that table to reflect your inner vision. So you're creating correspondence between inner and outer worlds. So you're kind of pulling objects out of the astral plane or out of a dream, literally, when you take steps to construct them. Now, the interesting thing is, if you put enough thought into it or enough visualization, objects can come into the physical world without you actually taking any physical action. For example, instead of building the table, somebody might give you the table. You might find that particular table and therefore bring it into your life. So in that case, it's increasing the probability of something happening, of an event taking place, and the more likely the event is to take place, the easier it is to make the corresponding vision take place. For example, if I'm living near an antique store that regularly disposes of certain items, I might find a table that corresponds to my vision. So there's a higher probability in that case if this is something that regularly happens. Also, I can increase the probability by taking action in order to more precisely define the vision, so you could actually build it rather than try to find something that fits your vision. So it all depends. Of course, you can get ideas from the outer world. So you can actually see a table that already exists. And that's it, set your mind on getting that table. And that could happen through purchasing it. So you could indirectly increase the odds of coming into the resources necessary to bring that vision into fruition. So there's more than one way to imprint the astral plane. Commercials imprint things in your mind, so you're not actively taking part in the process unless you involve yourself in some way in the advertisement, or perhaps influence more than some people, at least. So you can be an active participant in bringing a vision into fruition in terms of an advertisement that gets in your head, adds something. It's an advertisement, highlights something, calls your attention to it, and then you act on that vision. So that vision can be stimulated from something on the outside. It can be a mixture of the inside and more precisely the experience of being the self. That is more internal, that experience. So if you're building your vision extending from your point of view, of course, as you descend into the lower worlds, manifestation from the mind, the spirit, the mental plane, to the astral plane, to the physical plane, that you'll gather qualities that already exist. And the only way that you could really technically come up with something original is by working from this unlimited place, which is beyond the point of view. It's actually before the one, the zero, the unstructured consciousness, which could be anything, like a blank movie screen. So you start with the blank movie screen, and you begin to limit it. And you can think of the astral plane as, you could start out by thinking of it as, for example, a blank movie screen, and that would be a potentially useful hypnotic induction. And I used to have old tapes, silver mind control tapes, that had various visualizations, and one might be a screen that you visualize your goals on. Another was a mirror. And there were a lot of interesting techniques, everything from putting on in your imagination an imaginary suit, like, for example, a business suit for success, seeing yourself in the mirror. And another technique might be to associate drinking water with a particular state of consciousness or feeling, or something like that. So you might drink water and you might feel more confident, for example, or you might be more focused. And so you program an association, a trigger, a physical trigger. Now these triggers, again, can correspond to various senses. In terms of a product such as a soda, a soft drink, the logo is associated with the taste, and it might also be associated with the feeling of the substance as you drink it. Cold substance, it could be carbonated. So you associate scent, taste, and the appearance of the object. In this case, the soda. You're associating the actual, what the soda looks like, and the logo associated for potentially the actual object, the soda stored in, like the can. or bottle. So all of these things correspond, and they reinforce that idea. They amplify it. Now, the interesting thing about an idea, something like a corporation, is that it can perpetuate itself beyond that of the original creator, creators, or founders of that organization. So as long as some sort of blueprint exists, and it can be an outline in writing, it can be an outline like, for example, for a guitar, it could be 1 Stratocaster, A, blue, B, scalloped neck, right? 2 could be speaker, Marshall speaker. So you're creating an outline out of numbers and letters in order to describe something. And as you get in, as you're going, for example, from 1 to A, you're going from specifics. So 1 is guitar, then A would be the color, blue, B, scalloped neck. So you're getting into the details. So this is another way of doing outlines, another symbolic way of representing something. So it could be geometric. So you could actually have the picture of the guitar and the color blue, or you could use words to describe the object. You could specify measurements, but you could also represent that on paper. So you could show the shape of the guitar, and you could also indicate the length, for example, of the neck or the body of the guitar right on the diagram of the guitar. So you get the benefits of both the visual representation and the outline. Now, once again, some things are hard to depict in terms of geometry, other qualities like color. So you might have to create a different type of outline, the type that is that I mentioned before, with numbers and letters, although it could be a different type of representation of the object that you want to bring into manifestation.